Welcome to this episode of Dr. Ambedkar Thoughts. My last video on merit and reservation received hundreds of comments on my Facebook page, which reveal certain clear facts. For 90% of people who oppose reservation think reservation is a poverty alleviation program. The decrease in the number of reserve seats is directly proportional to the increase in the hatred towards reserve groups. Reservation is perceived as unfair, unjust towards unreserved groups by general category. They think reservation is against the principle of equality. The same people are neither perturbed by the fact that India is one of the most economically unequal countries in the world, nor they come forward to oppose other socially and economically dominant groups like Jats, Marathas, Patidar who demand reservation. One of the most common questions asked, is it fair to give reservation to economically well-off sections among SCs and STs? They say only economically affluent SCs, STs are taking advantage of reservation. They ask why can't a concept of creamy layer be applied SCs and STs? The people who raise such questions lack basic understanding of constitutional concept of reservation and role of caste in social, economic and cultural spaces in India. Watch full video carefully to understand the relation between elite class in SC/STs and true realization of democracy in India. Before entering into discussion, it is worthwhile to revisit the constitutional concept of reservation one more time. First enumeration and listing of depressed classes and tribal communities was done by Britishers. Demography expert Mr Hutton prepared the list of scheduled castes in 1931, listing those castes with whom untouchability was being observed. What were the criteria for scheduling them? These were discrimination owing to untouchability, non-representation, in addition criteria of isolation in case of tribals. They were identified on the basis of the discrimination they faced for the last many centuries and still being discriminated owing to the caste system. Later on in independent India, constitution entitled them protection from discrimination. In India, discrimination is practiced with them because they belong to untouchable caste. OBC was identified on the basis of educational and social backwardness. Economic status was never the criteria. In India, discrimination is observed because of the caste and not because of economic status. Discrimination is observed because person belongs to a particular caste. Bringing in economic criteria for reservation of SCs, STs indicates that there is a lack of complete understanding of the concept of reservation. Now the question is whether highly placed SC, STs officers or well section of SC, STs or their middle classes face discrimination or not. P.S. Krishnan, retired IAS officer who was secretary in the Union Ministry of Welfare when reservation for the other backward classes was implemented in 1990 and an expert in the field of social justice, said that backwardness in the case of Dalits and Adivasis cannot be judged using the creamy layer framework, but is based on the fact that they are subject to untouchability. A person might even become a collector, said Krishnan, but has society stopped treating them as untouchables? Even Jagjivan Ram, a powerful Dalit union minister who served in both Jawaharlal Nehru's and Indira Gandhi's cabinet, when he unveiled a statue, it was later washed with Ganga water. Krishnan concluded that the argument that the lack of creamy layer allow a small clique to grab post is incorrect. Very few people from the Dalit and Adivasi communities rise to higher levels of government services, said Krishnan. When a stage comes when there are more Dalits and Adivasis than reserve posts in promotion, then this can be looked at. Applying this now is like applying the brake before the ignition switch is started. What is obstructing the progress of SCs and STs is not this but the negative attitude of those who have to consider the promotion of SCs and STs who are eligible and qualified. Some recent examples of discriminations with Dalit VIPs are These are some of the blatant happenings with Dalit VIPs which were reported by media, but discrimination faced by officers of SC/STs categories are subtle and silent. Research reports, which I have mentioned in my previous videos and most recent SARI survey, clearly shows that 90% of Indians are caste conscious and caste ridden. With caste consciousness comes caste discrimination. There is not a single study or research survey conducted on this subject of caste discrimination with government officers and caste discrimination in government offices. In the country where caste consciousness among the people is a fact, there it is responsibility of the government to check the caste-based discrimination with government employees. Some examples of such silent discriminations are giving lower ratings in annual confidentiality reports, not considering for key posts and giving insignificant postings, choosing them for risky, uncomfortable remote postings, severely punishing their minor faults, showing no dignity while communicating with them, ignoring or not giving any weightage to their suggestions, opinions, not recommending them for recognition and awards, not appreciating their hard work. There is a misconception that Dalits and Adivasis, when occupy positions such as IAS and IPS or any other higher rank, do not face any discrimination. As stated by Ashwini Deshpande, economic prosperity of lower caste does not solve the problem of discrimination, and the opposition that existed in India was to quota itself and not the basis of it. And the basis of discrimination is caste. There is no study report or research report available which clearly brings out absence of discrimination with SC/ST category government officers. The huge backlog of reserve posts in government jobs for more than 50 years indicates systemic discrimination ingrained in the entire government machinery. Economic equality does not transcend into social equality in India, and thus economically well-off higher caste and OBCs and Dalits are not socially equal. All over the world, wherever there is a provision of affirmative action, a person is not at the center of the policy, but it is a community as a whole which faces the discrimination. Now let us understand the so-called creamy layer among SC/STs. After 70 years of implementation of reservation, there is a low representation of SC/STs in all the 4 pillars of democracy. According to the reports published in Indian Express, census counts just 4% SC/ST families with a member in a government job. According to 2011 census in India, only 4% of SC/ST households are such that persons of the family is in government service. The majority of such jobs are in Group D services, which largely comprise of sweepers and peons. The central zone, which is comprised of state of Madhya Pradesh, where the tribal population is 14.7, and the Chhattisgarh, where tribal population is 31%, in this zone only 3.2% ST households have someone in government jobs. The total number of Indian Administrative Service, Indian Police Service and Indian Forest Service officers in scheduled caste and scheduled tribe and other backward classes is as follows. The handbook published by Ministry of Social Justice in 2014 gives the caste composition of government services, which is quite revealing. The so-called elite service of India is Group A service. The SC occupy only 12.6% of the post, whereas the general category occupies 74.48% of the Group A post, which is quite disproportionate to their share in the population. From the graph, we see that as the rank of services drops, the representation of general categories also drops, while in the case of SCs, the representation percentage increases as the rank drops, with overwhelming majority of SCs in sweeper and peon position. The graded inequality, which is the hallmark of caste system, is also reflected in government services. Now let us consider the share of SC/STs in white collar jobs, where earnings are higher and help in improving their economic lot. Please look at the graph in front of you. Here we find that among the highly paid skilled white collar jobs, share of Dalits and Adivasis is minuscule, whereas among unskilled laborers, Dalits and Adivasis have more representation compared to the other categories. when their share in white collar jobs continues to be less than average share of other categories. Now let us see the share of SC/STs in the wealth of India. The graph in front of you shows that Dalits and Adivasis figure at the bottom of the hierarchy in terms of ownership of non-agriculture establishment as well as total establishment. Whereas the general caste occupy the top of the pyramid, SC/STs contribute a greater share among the workers but earn a meager wealth in return. All the reports discussed so far clearly prove that the cream is yet to be formed and there is no question of creamy layer in SCs and STs. The second basis of reservation is representation. Till 2000, under SC/ST reservation seats were not filled completely till year 2000. The number of backlog vacancies continued to mount. The work of filling up the backward and reserve seats began with seriousness only after 2006. The seats reserved for SC/STs were not filled, giving the reason that suitable candidates were not found. For this reason, only in premier institutions like IITs, 25 to 40% of reserve seats were not filled. If the criteria of creamy layer is applied, then this middle class among the SC/STs, which is formed with the help of benefits of reservation and is in position to compete the competitive exams, will be thrown out of the race. The ruling of Andhra Pradesh High Court, which upheld the categorization of SCs and STs into A, B, C, D categories on the basis of their social and economic development, was struck down by the Honorable Supreme Court. Importantly, on the charge that affirmative action is the creamy layer effect, that the authentic beneficiaries from the target population are only persons who already are from the group is comparatively more affluent middle class, William Darity in his paper confronting those affirmative action grumbles writes, this may be quite true. As noted above, affirmative action is not an anti-poverty program, nor it is program intended to produce a greater general or intra-group equality per se. Its reason detour is to make the class distribution within the subaltern population roughly similar to the class distribution in the dominant population. Insofar as this involves desegregation of elites, the subaltern middle class will be best positioned to take the positions that will alter elite demography. Affirmative action is well designed to produce and enhance the creamy layer, so it is unsurprising that when it is effective, it may have such consequences. Before William Darity, Dr. Ambedkar argued in similar vein when he wrote that there are certain fundamental considerations which go to the root of democracy, which they cannot ignore without peril to democracy. For the sake of clarity, these considerations may be set down in a serial order. First is the recognition of hard fact of history that in every country there exist two classes, the governing class and the servile class, between whom there is a continuous struggle for power. The second is that by reason of its power and prestige, the governing class finds it easy to maintain its supremacy over the servile class. Third is that adult suffrage and frequent elections are no bar against governing class reaching places of power and authority. Fourth is that on account of their inferiority complex, the members of the servile classes regard the members of the governing class as their natural leaders, and servile classes themselves volunteer to elect members of the governing classes as their rulers. Fifth is that existence of a governing class is inconsistent with the democracy and self-government, and that given the fact that where the governing class retain its power to govern, it is wrong to believe that democracy and self-government have become realities of life. Sixth is that self-government and democracy become real not when constitution based on adult suffrage comes into existence, but when the governing class loses its power to capture the power to govern. Seventh is that while in some countries servile classes may succeed in ousting the governing class from the seat of authority with nothing more than adult suffrage, in other countries the governing class may be so deeply entrenched that servile classes will need more safeguards beside adult suffrage to achieve the same end. That there is a great value in having these considerations drawn up and hung up so as to say on the wall before every lover of democracy, so that he may see them and note them goes without saying. For they will help, as nothing else can, to make him realize that in devising a constitution for democracy, he must bear in mind that the principal aim of such constitution must be dislodge the governing class from its position and to prevent it from remaining as a governing class forever. That the machinery for setting up a democratic government cannot be a matter of dogma, that ousting the governing class from power being the main object, the machinery for setting up a democratic government cannot be uniform, and that variation in the machinery of democracy must not merely be tolerated but accepted for the reason that the processes by which the governing classes obtain their mastery over the servile classes vary from country to country. The provision of affirmative action or reservation is one such safeguard to what Dr. Ambedkar refers or talks about. After independence, all the positions of power and authority in legislature, in executive, or in judiciary are permanently occupied by higher caste, who have been the governing class for centuries. Hence, democracy in India as it exists today is not the democracy in true sense. The elite demography of India, which is caste based, cannot be transformed till class distribution in servile classes is changed and made similar to the class distribution of upper caste. With the benefit of reservation, the middle class, which is coming up among the SC/STs, this middle class is the only class among the SC/STs which is capable of changing the existing class distribution in the society. Only then the roots of democracy in India will become stronger. Till the SC/ST class is in position to challenge the supremacy of governing class in India, which is largely made up of upper caste, the talk of creamy layer in SC/ST would only weaken the democracy in India. Relative size of different classes in India in 2015, a McKinsey report. The report in front of you shows income class distribution in India. The country in which only 2% of population belongs to upper class and rich class, only 19% makes the middle class. In that country, how many SC/STs who have negligible wealth ownership and who make the bulk of group D services in government will actually be part of middle, upper and rich classes. Till the SC/ST class is in position to challenge the supremacy of governing class in India, which is largely made of upper caste, the talk of creamy layer in SC/STs would weaken the democracy in India. Jai Bhim.